And the idea as kind of an entrepreneur and an engineer that I couldn't get out of my head was the connection between the things we buy, the data about the things we buy, and our health. What I couldn't shake loose was this idea that we don't have even access to that own basic information. The technology's not the problem, right? And so the idea back then that I really couldn't shake loose was this connection between purchase information and health. Really, some puzzle pieces came together for me in my career over many years after that. That was the aha moment. My name is Adam Newman, and I am the founder and CEO at Pyrl.
This is Code Story, the podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Laphart, and today how Adam Newman took a new tool and built a new company for brands to stay connected and respect data privacy. All this and more on Code Story. Adam Newman grew up in the suburbs of New York and Brooklyn. Now he lives in the D.C., Maryland area. His grandparents were immigrants and owned a bakery and were tailors, so the entrepreneur and self-starter characteristics found in Adam are deeply rooted. He's married with 4 kids and loves to spend lots of time outdoors and living vicariously through his children's sports activities. He spends a lot of time helping his wife grow her education business, and she spends a lot of time supporting and encouraging him with his ventures. Through his life experiences, including losing his father to cancer, an idea originated in him around consumers owning their purchase data while enabling enterprises who cooperate with data privacy best practices to reach the right consumers without ever giving them anyone's data. When a few things caught up in the world, data privacy rules, the industry, and Adam himself, he was able to step into creating a win-win solution around this data. This is the creation story of Pyrl.
Pyrl is the world's first purchase privacy platform. Promised I'd tell you about the name. The reason I love the name Pyrl is it's that mental image, of a pearl as this, precious, valuable, vulnerable thing that you want to protect. You want to protect it in, a shell that only you can decide to open or share with others. That's a great analogy for our information. It paints a full picture of our lives, and it is a very precious, valuable, and vulnerable thing. It also, Pyrl happens to be my daughter's middle name. We're a startup, so we had to spell it all techie, Pyrl, because that's what startups do these days. And the premise is that our most valuable data, right, as consumers, really is how we all spend our money. If you think about that, down to the nitty-gritty, literally the things we buy, that is completely locked up value, meaning that we as consumers, even though it's our information, right, we actually have no effective access to that simple information about all the things we buy. It turns out, if we fix that, that has tremendous benefits to the average person in our finances, in our health, in our privacy. It's also a big problem and a locked up value to the companies that need to earn our trust. And they can't reach us today on that granular basis of what are the actual things we're interested in purchasing. And they certainly can't in any ethical way. And so that dual-sided problem, what it does is it lets Pyrl build a solution that's win-win by restoring trust, right, and really direct relationships between consumers and the companies that we're buying from. We're not only, cutting out all the data trackers that now sit in the middle of those relationships, but what we're doing is we're giving our users the benefits of their own data across their wallets, their health, their finances, their privacy, while at the same time, we're able to get the cooperation of the companies that have to be involved for it to work, because for them, we're solving what's roughly a $100 billion enterprise problem of the skyrocketing costs of just reaching the right consumers ethically. So that's what Pyrl is. I was a tech entrepreneur in New York City kind of during the dot-com craze, when really my world kind of blew up. There was the dot-com crash, and my partner and I decided to wind our first business down. 9/11 happened, which was obviously devastating in every way. I had just gotten married. I was in some debt for my first business. And then I lost my dad to cancer. He was 55, and he was kind of my best friend. He was always talked about having a fire in the belly for what you pursue in life. And for me, in an unexpected way, that was the spark behind Pyrl. I didn't realize back then how it would all evolve. But the reason it was the spark for Pyrl is his cancer, as is common with so many diseases, it really couldn't be explained through genetics alone. And so you start thinking about man-made causes of disease and product-based causes of disease and the exposures we all have. And the idea as kind of an entrepreneur and an engineer that I couldn't get out of my head was the connection between, the things we buy, the data about the things we buy, and our health. What's in products. And what I couldn't shake loose was this idea that, why don't we have as consumers, we don't have even access to that own basic information. I'm talking item level information about the things we purchase and expose our households to, whether it's personal care products or household chemicals or food or anything of that nature, because the technology's not the problem, right? When you make purchases, barcode level, item level information is there. And so the idea back then that I really couldn't shake loose was this connection between purchase information and health. Really some puzzle pieces came together for me in my career over many years after that. That was the aha moment. Because, at the very beginning, I didn't realize this was a big business opportunity. At the beginning, I was thinking, it should be a nonprofit that accomplishes that, and just, dashboards, the things I buy, green, yellow, red, what's in them, the health impacts. And what became really obvious was, a lot of things had to catch up. For me, privacy became the accidental mission because, when you really look at how privacy is defined, it's not just keeping, bad guys out of your data, it's also your own right to access and utilize your own information. And so that was one aha moment of, okay, what I've really been thinking about really is all about data privacy. Society had to catch up because now everybody gets it, right? The value of privacy, it's a mainstream idea. The average person gets it that, yes, my data is worth something. Yes, I get that I'm being tracked. Technology had to catch up, right? Just the ability to securely route people's information to them where they're in the driver's seat, but also maintaining the security on the corporate side of things, those who are contributing the data. But the biggest thing, honestly, is I had to catch up. I had, kind of the drive and some of the seedlings of the ideas, but I didn't have the experience back then to do something of this magnitude and really something industry changing. And I was really lucky, in the years since that a couple of big puzzle pieces came together in my career that gave me different experiences to now, really make Pyrl happen at scale.
Well, tell me about the MVP. So that first product that you went out and you built, how long did it take you to build, and what sort of tools did you use to bring it to life?
Yeah, so we formally incorporated Pyrl recently, last October. Some really great, pre-seed investors that came together, like Hustle Fund and the co-founder of Greenhouse Software, co-founder of a big, venture firm out in Silicon Valley, and a digital streaming company that got sold, and a few others. It's been awesome. But there was so much legwork before that, like almost 2 years before that, of all the basic concepts having to come together to start to build the MVP. What do we build? Because if you look at what Pyrl is fundamentally, you have consumers on the one side, companies that they buy from on the other, with a secure data platform in the middle, which is Pyrl. And so we had a lot of decisions to make on getting the MVP built and how to prioritize what to actually build. So on the consumer side, we went out and did actually 6 different national surveys across all different geographies and income levels and age bands, gender, to understand, really get a picture of the average consumer when it comes to this information, which like I said at the beginning, the how we spend money is our most valuable information, but nobody cares about data, right? The average consumer doesn't care about data. They care about convenience and features and savings and turns out privacy. So we did a lot of legwork to make sure we had a little bit of a more quantifiable picture of when it comes to purchase information and the features that if we can make purchase information accessible, right? Today, you can't pick up your phone and see all the stuff you buy, but if we can fix that, then all these features become possible all of a sudden. Of all those possibilities, what's really important to people versus not so important? So that was a whole bunch of work that we did. But then separately, flipping over to the more enterprise side, we had to make sure that we're going to go build something that made sense for the enterprises also, because unless we build a win-win, the concept doesn't work. And so I spent a lot of time meeting with executives of retailers, really informally, and a lot of introductions through advisors and things like that, and just, the hard work of networking to talk about the concept and, is this solving a problem that you have, and hearing from them what they love about it and what their concerns are that we would need to engineer for it to be something workable for them. I'd say, once we did all that legwork and decided, okay, the MVP really should be centered on privacy. The common denominator across the board on all that legwork was privacy. All the surveys we did, it's like the number one feature everybody said they wanted, almost like across different demographics and all that, was, I want one place I can just sign up and boom, every place that I spend money, I've got my data privacy. And then secondly, I've got my data access. I can see it, I can make use of it. Fortuitously, really lucky for us, data privacy laws, right at the exact same time, started really heating up. And we realized wow, okay, consumers want this. Data privacy laws are now going on the books, started in California, and now it's really propagating across the country. Those laws are really a propellant for what we're trying to do. They empower what we're trying to do. They let consumers appoint companies like Pyrl as their agent to go act on their behalf and to make things happen. And we thought, that's wind at our backs. Lastly, on the enterprise side, through all those conversations, it was, the acceleration of data privacy laws is making it more and more and more expensive for companies to reach the right consumers, and certainly to do it ethically. And so it became this screaming aha moment of your MVP needs to be about privacy, a very straightforward, purchase privacy tool where people can come sign up, create an account, and if they want to link credit cards or if they don't, they can manually just put in, here's where I buy things, here's where I spend money, and boom, Pyrl goes and makes that happen for you. And so that's how we decided what to build. I'd say from once we decided what the MVP was and got, some of the right team members lined up, it was about 6 months to get the MVP built and start to get it tested.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted VCSOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com.
So from that point then, you got your MVP, you built it, it took 6 months. How did you progress it from there? And you mentioned roadmap earlier, but I want to dial into that specifically. How did you build your roadmap and decide, okay, after privacy, this is the next most important thing to build or to focus on?
The prioritization of it came through all the legwork of talking to consumers and talking to executives, because something I learned the hard way through the last venture I did, which amazingly gave me kind of a playbook for how to go about building Pyrl as a win-win. The bottom line is that when you're doing something that is intended to create a new industry standard, those are big goals, right? Changing an industry and creating a new standard are big goals. Something I learned the hard way from my past is it only works when it's a win-win. Meaning, the Pyrl concept, the real magic trick behind it is how we are creating a win-win across consumers and all the companies they buy from. Because, beating corporations over the head with privacy laws is only going to get you so far. What we've been able to crack, and it took time, and I went about it totally the wrong way before realizing the right way, was we can create a win-win. We can put consumers in the driver's seat where they are in, full control of their data. No one can access it but them. While at the same time, companies that honor privacy requests and are privacy complying are going to benefit financially and benefit in terms of consumer trust in very measurable ways, so that they can plug into our APIs and do pilots with us and get involved. So the win-win is the key to everything, right? The companies have to trust us and consumers have to trust us. For consumers, we wanted to be able to, make a basic statement that, hey, even our own engineers can't see your data. And so we had to engineer that way, meaning being privacy first architected from the beginning, from the ground up. And when you build a platform that way, it's more challenging than if you didn't build it that way. It makes certain things harder to do as a company. And then on the enterprise side, things like having a distributed secure system where we can sit across the table from a CIO or a CISO and say, hey, you don't need to trust a startup. You can deploy, an instance of the Pyrl server on your own premises or in your own private cloud. You can keep it on-prem. You can keep it behind your own existing security infrastructure and firewall, and you have full administrative rights to it, and the whole ecosystem still works, and you're not breaking your internal controls. You're not violating any of the procedures that you put in place. So it allows the enterprise side of things and those executives to pilot with Pyrl without taking risks like that from an enterprise perspective. So those kinds of features have really spelled our roadmap. Like I've painted more the non-functional side, and then the functional side as well came from all that same research.
So let's switch to team then. So how did you go about building your team? And specifically, what did you look for in those people to indicate that they were the winning horses to join you?
I've been fortunate in some of the things I've gotten to do before Pyrl. I was involved with building a large joint venture that helped address the last financial crisis, and we went really fast to 500 people. And so a lot of things you do right and wrong and make mistakes and learn through things like that. As you're building a team, the first thing I always look for, do we share a vision? Like I shared the really personal roots that Pyrl started for me. But if you've got people, regardless of the specifics of the particular technology or skill set they're bringing to the table, if there's a shared energy for, wow, I'm passionate about this, right? If people come in and you're introduced to them, and there's that spark, there's that shared vision of, wow, this is huge. If we can fix this, we're fixing a major problem in the world, people's privacy, people's identity, getting kind of the bad guys out of the middle, rebuilding trust creating a trust-based economy, helping people's health, helping their wallets, like all those kinds of things. If that lights a spark for folks, then that's always the first thing. In the very early days that we were in and are really still in, it starts with kind of the inner circles of who knows who. I had really great introductions from advisors and investors where, we were introduced to our first, CTO who had a great background in retail tech, and introduced to even someone from the last venture was my first partner in strategizing how to bring Pyrl to market at all. One of my investors, through them, we met, the gentleman that's now helping with all of our user marketing. And so the team started to come together that way. But that being said, as we hit our next funding milestone and we start to really grow the team more, we'll be a lot more deliberative about, growing a team, less around just who knows who, and more attention to what do we really need to put in place for the next stage of growth, making sure we're building, hiring for diversity. The best ideas have, in past things that I've done have come from doing that. There's a real risk when you just go with who everybody becomes like-minded. So as we hit that next funding milestone and we really start to expand the team, we'll be going about it that way.
Let's flip to scalability. So did you build this to scale efficiently from day one, or are you finding this as you grow and gain traction with Pyrl?
Basically, we've architected for scalability, but didn't build it all at the beginning. Because, it's like any startup, you have to be careful about what you invest in, not over-investing too soon. Right now, the platform is horizontally scalable, and it's one of the trade-offs we had to make. Like the last business I built, we were one of the first two major kind of national financial infrastructures that went all in on AWS. And so they were a big partner of ours, Amazon Web Services. And so it would have been the natural thing in starting Pyrl to base the platform on AWS. But there's kind of a wrinkle with that, right? So one of our major sets of partners that we need as we build out Pyrl is retailers. For obvious reasons, there's a competitive issue there between Amazon and all the other retailers. And so we heard that from retail executives that, they're not particularly thrilled with a platform like ours being reliant on AWS. So that was one choice. We're on Azure. But in terms of architecting for scale, what we did is we made sure, all of the hooks are in place to scale out the security infrastructure, how the encryption works, the enterprise side of being distributed, like I shared earlier. So we've architected for all that, but we didn't build it all day one. We have to be efficient with the capital. And then on the user side of just having the MVP deployed, that's all horizontally scalable. So as the traffic increases, we can grow it.
Well, Adam, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
I think entrepreneurs struggle with that question. I certainly do, because it's kind of like as you achieve something, your brain goes, well, I'll be proud when this next thing happens. And maybe that's part of the entrepreneurial sickness. If I had to give you an answer, I'd say, two things. One is it's been really humbling the people that have coalesced around Pyrl. Even before we had any early funds raised, people were just so taken by the concept that, I was really grateful to have, folks, some very experienced folks get involved even without any cash component, and spend time even daily to get all the legwork off the ground and working on the MVP and all of that. And just amazing people. There's nothing so exciting as when you think you have a vision, and there's always that self-doubt, right? As an entrepreneur, I have this idea and I'm driven toward it, but is it something the world needs? And is it something others will resonate around? And so when that starts to happen and validate the thinking and even obviously shape the thinking, that's the biggest thing that I'd say is really gratifying. And the other thing more around the concept is, because of past experiences and doing similar things in a very different industry, we've been able to take a really novel approach to the problem. Everybody looks at sort of the common aspects of data privacy. People think data privacy and they think my social media data, my browsing data. But this elephant in the room, right, of what's really the most valuable information, how we spend our money. What's really empowering kind of the abusive players in the middle is being in the middle of consumer transactions, right? It being in the middle of, in between consumers and the companies we buy from. And so the aha of, well, if we can fix that, if we can give consumers their own data and all the benefits of that, and create direct, trusted relationships between consumers and those that they buy from, that's a little bit of a unique way to look at the world of data privacy and start from the real fundamentals of what's most important here, what's most valuable here. The real thing of you can't solve it without creating a win-win. And how can we look at this in a way where it's truly very compelling, financially compelling win-wins for all the right players to get involved? That only happened because of having done something similar in another industry. And I'm pretty proud of that because it's letting us build a solution in a way that, others haven't tried before.
Well, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I think a big one early on was just the basic thinking on how we take this concept to market. The first bite at the apple, we thought, let's start this from the corporate lens because it seemed like a path of least resistance. Meaning, we'll go get a few large enterprise partners and we'll put a pilot together and we'll create kind of a consortium of enterprise pilot partners, and we'll be able to show the numbers of you give consumers their privacy, you give them their data, here's how it benefits. And we thought that would be, the quickest way to get up and running. That was some flawed thinking in a number of ways, right? Because we lost track of the roots. This is about empowering consumers. And yes, we need the win-win for enterprises because otherwise the concept doesn't work. But the everyday consumer needs to see the value, they need to see their privacy, they need to see the value of their information. That was a course correction we had to make because trying to put that together the way we were originally thinking about it, it's a real uphill battle for lots of reasons. And so we had to adjust, we had to pivot, and we had to say, okay, let's make sure the MVP really is geared the right way at everyday, users that have a privacy concern. Let's make sure that we're building our own community of early adopters that are the community we're really trying to serve. And so, that was a pivot that we had to make, a correction that we had to make, and I'm really glad we did it.
Well, what does the future look like for Pyrl, the product, and for your team?
So I'd say looking out over the next year, the really cool thing in terms of like our whole mission of building a win-win is that what we've been able to show so far, right, through releasing the MVP and starting to build that user community is it's a very simple tool to use. When you go to Pyrl.io and you click sign up, you create an account. It's privacy everywhere that you spend money. You type your initials, you appoint us as your data privacy agent, and then you just tell the platform where you spend money. And you can do that manually, or if you want to link a credit card, you can do that. What's been very cool is that last step in that sign-up process, because we're trying to keep it like so simple, is you tell Pyrl what your privacy preferences are, and then we go out and make that happen everywhere that the user is spending money. And that's just a couple of switches, right? I don't want my data sold or shared or brokered. I want access to my purchase information through Pyrl. And then the real kicker for us in building the win-win is we just give people the option and we say, hey, will you reward the good guys? Will you let privacy complying companies engage with you? We try to educate the user that, hey, we're trying to build a trust-based economy. We're trying to reward the companies that honor privacy and create that ecosystem. And so what we've seen is that over 90% of users say yes to that. Yep, good guy companies, they can engage with me and they can pick how often, how relevant, that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that any data is shared. Data is always private, but companies can engage. And so the future for us, or if I really look out over like the next 12 months, that dynamic is really powerful for us because what we've seen is that when users sign up for Pyrl, on average, they direct us to go engage with between 10 and 20, sizable retailers and merchants for them and get them their data privacy and their data access. And what we're able to say to those enterprises is, hey, give our users what they're asking for on their data privacy, and 93% of them are going to, in turn, reward you and give you access to reach them and engage with them. And that creates a win-win. And so for looking out over our next 12 months, we're going to build on those fundamentals and build up our user community, be able to bring those kinds of numbers to retailers in the United States and start to get pilots going that show them the power of how they get rewarded through those kinds of numbers. And that'll lead us to really our next funding round.
Let's switch to you, Adam. Who influences the way that you work? Name a CEO, CTO, architect, really any person that you look up to and why.
I have a couple of answers to that question. My wife, by far, right? So first of all, not only is she the biggest cheerleader for Pyrl, and for years has, shared the vision and helped me overcome all the self-doubt and obstacles. She herself, as I shared earlier, has also built a business that really matters to people. And hers is helping struggling readers learn how to read. On a weekly basis, she's got parents in tears on Zoom calls. How did you do this? My child can read now. And so that's really inspirational to me to watch that happen. Both the upfront and close of the impact in the world, but also the behind the scenes of what it takes to grow that and scale it and reach more kids. So she's my biggest influence easily. Also, my first business partner, who's also an advisor and an investor in Pyrl, Daniel Chait, he's the co-founder of Greenhouse Software, which is a really successful venture-backed company in New York City. He's a big influence and he's a big mentor to me, having been through growing in a company very successfully. Very grateful for his advice as well.
So we talked about a mistake, but a little bit different spin. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you do differently? Or where would you consider taking a different approach?
I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't have the experience. When the idea for Pyrl first occurred to me way back when, I just didn't have the business experience, the world experience to go do something of this nature. The puzzle pieces that came together for me was a couple things. The first was I was kind of recruited out of the New York City entrepreneurial world to go lead the technology and operations replatforming for a public company that got bought by Nielsen. So all of a sudden I was in this world of consumer data that was like an accidental benefit because it got me a little closer to the universe I needed to be in. Through talking to people, it helped me validate what I had been thinking, right? That, this information that was in my head about, empowering consumers with their own purchase data. It's like, A, nobody has that data, and B, it's like insanely valuable. I had thought about starting Pyrl after that whole experience, but then the second puzzle piece happened. And the second puzzle piece was totally different industry, but insane similarities to Pyrl in terms of how to go make a win-win happen at scale. And it was after the last financial crisis, which was all centered on housing finance. And there was this tremendous need to restore trust and transparency to that industry and the mechanics of how it worked. It wound up relating to Pyrl. What I found myself in a very fortunate situation. I was recruited to the executive team at Fannie Mae. I was it's the outsider, right? I'm like this New York entrepreneur with no background in that industry. And I was in a position to propose kind of a crazy idea, which was, let's create a joint venture, which was across Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the federal regulators across all that, to standardize what the industry does on an open, transparent data platform. So I was really humbled to have that opportunity to help launch and lead that venture. We grew that to about 500 people. It now returns about $500 million a year to the average American taxpayer. What I learned there that helped me with Pyrl was it's like, okay, how do you build commonalities across everyday consumers and regulators and then competing enterprises and take all those conflicting goals and find win-win so that something positive can emerge. And I made so many mistakes through all that I was grateful to be given a shot to do it and super proud of the whole team there that's still there. But also learned, how do you modernize a really entrenched legacy industry that's heavily regulated and something that all Americans count on in their everyday lives. I wouldn't have had that to bring to Pyrl if I hadn't had that experience. And then lastly, to do it all with a new data platform, that unlocks such tremendous value for everyday people. That really gave me a lot of the gray hair and experience, though, to make Pyrl real and have maybe the audacity to take on something big like that. But something I would do differently, I think, really simple for Pyrl, something really simple that I would do differently is just get the MVP out faster. I mentioned that as one of the mistakes we made, right? The go-to-market approach. I think, if I could go back and just get that MVP out faster, we would have learned some of that quicker.
Well, last question, Adam. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. Can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
When you find the fire in your belly, right, that of here's something I want to create in this world, or here's change that I want to create in this world. And when you can feel that as like a genuine, real passion inside you, that's something to grab onto. When you can align something that you're passionate about with something that the world needs, there's such tremendous power in that, because what it means is that you're going to push through the hard times. And the reverse is also true, right? If you don't have those feelings, you're probably not going to stick it out and push through those hard times. One of my favorite little inspirational clips, like on YouTube, is this thing from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the whole theme that he has is no plan B, right? He's like, look, if you have a plan B, and then the first time the going gets tough, or the second time the going gets tough, you're going to take the plan B. You're going to say, okay, this isn't working. I'm just going to go do this other thing and support myself. And, look, me personally, right, as a 2-entrepreneur family with 4 kids, those are very real trade-offs, right? It's not simple to support a family when there's no consistency. We were 2 entrepreneurs. But what lets us do that is that passion. So, and this is the case for both me and my wife, and this is what I would tell the person on the plane, is that, if you've got the real burning fire and the real passion of some change you want to bring to the world, and it aligns with something the world needs, that's gonna power you through the tough times. And what I'd also say is what happens because of that is, in my life, people that I never could have predicted, because of that passion, right? Because of striving to build something the world needs, people have just unpredictably given generously of themselves, gave me a shot, lent their energy, their resources, their helping hand. And even you're doing that, right? You're doing that right now because you're being a connector. Your listeners may hear this and either be inspired to build what they want to build. Maybe some will be inspired by what Pyrl's doing and check us out. But I think the bottom line is, like, energy attracts, passion attracts. And if you've got that passion for the thing you want to change in the world, you will persevere. And that genuineness will attract others who your goals resonate with. When that happens, it's like magic, right? We have such immense gratitude. We want to pay it forward. So,
well, Adam, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of Pyrl.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Noah.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now And support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.